Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another sweet and sexy, sour, salty edition of Life as People. With me, as always, is my tag team international wrestling champion partner, David Lassoff. Sharpton and Lassoff. You getting ready for the wrestling match? There it is.
Yeah, man, you're a tag team partner, man.
We're ready to take. We're ready to take on any challengers. Anyone who thinks that they know more about soup or candles or Bed Bath and Beyond than me and Tim, because we are experts in all three of those fields. And so today we're going to talk about soup. What do you think about soup, Tim?
Life is soup, my friend. That's all I can say. Life is soup.
Ju- we're a little giddy here on Life as People already because we've been experiencing technical difficulties and we're already an hour and 15 minutes behind. And yeah, but our guest is hopefully Broken Opium, Glenn from Broken Opium Table, who's going to be coming on. And we tried doing this once before, and Tim had a huge lag going on his end, so we had to stop the podcast, do it all over again. But one of the first things he asked me was if there were any specific Broken Opium Table tunes that I wanted to talk about, and really just kind of all of them. I think I've said it before, but I'm one of those people that's terrible with song names, especially when somebody like Broken Opium Table and Lesbian Horse have just the kind of groups that have you go on their SoundCloud and man, it'll take you a while to go through all their stuff, and there was so much of it that I liked. I think Broken Opium Table is very unique. It's a sound that you don't hear too often nowadays. Kind of reminds me of just some really experimental kind of noise, ambient noise, hip hop. Uh, man, really hard to. I guess if you took like Sergey Gainsbourg and mix that with like Japanese noise rock, and then put that inside of a Richard Stanley movie, I think you would have Broken Opium Table. And
Okay, well, one of the first things they reminded me of, and I said this to Glenn the first time I sort of spoke to him, they reminded me of Low Fidelity All Stars. I don't know if that is the name of a band you ever come across.
I think so, but then at the same time, I want to say that I've heard of a group called High Fidelity All Stars, but I think I have, but I'm not sure.
Well, the
Did they do
connection.
like dubstep of them, or did they do like those reggae cover albums?
No, they weren't reggae. They were very much like, in the sense of the Broken Opium Table kind of um,
Yeah, that's I.
sort of sound, if you get what you're sort of saying. But the connection was that they had my intro into that band was Sean Smith, who used to be the singer in. Well, he's done lots of collaborations, and I got to know him through Brad. And then he's done loads of collaborations with loads of bands, and he did a song with Low Fidelity All Stars. And that's what reminded me. The first time I heard a Broken Opium, I was like, "Oh wow, they really are digging up a sound." Which reminds me a bit, as I said this week, it's a bit like like we were talking pre-podcast, about bringing up old sort of 90s stars, because you were sort of saying, the new beat you would do with Weekhead sounds very much like Soul Coffee, which is in the same sort of genre as Low Fidelity All Stars, which is that, it's quite an interesting sound, really. That kind of,
Wait, Wighead, or the beat that I made?
yeah, that one that you made. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's gonna be that's with Joe Pokey.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The
That's
Joe Pokey.
shout out to Jay Dookie. Yeah, that's the another EP I'm working on, which is sort of 90s hip hop funk style. I don't know. To me, and that's kind of why I have the name Deadbeat, because I feel like I think the Dead still has a heartbeat, and you can talk about like, oh well, this was only a '90s style, but at the same time, like style never really dies. I mean, to think that what David Bowie did could only be done when David Bowie was, in his prime is just ludicrous. Like, you move with the times, and I think nowadays, even especially nowadays, you can see that just there's very few styles that haven't been, I think, brought back to life. I think a lot more people are just, in. I think a lot of people are digging deeper and going further and finding other styles to bring out. And yeah, when was Low Fidelity High All Stars around?
Oh man, we're talking 97, 98, late 90s, that kind
Okay,
of time. Do you know what I mean? But there was that kind of
yeah, it's like 17 years ago.
yeah,
Jesus.
that's the scary thing, man. When you realise that time flies. I mean, when you realise that, yeah, that's how quickly it goes. It's quite immense, really. I mean, but there was that kind of style back then. There was maybe a couple of years of it when there was Low Fidelity All Stars, Soul Coffin, even your man Beck, who was quite sort of mainstream. It was all that playing with different kind of styles, and then it all, I don't know, the year 2000 clicked into place, and everything went really electronic and kind of soulless. And we've discussed that many times, but it's quite, But like you say, if it's 17 years, people are just going back and just rediscovering, aren't they? That's all it is.
I think they're discovering that they can make it. They can still make that sound, and it's not just there's the '80s revival, '80s synth revival is a huge thing, and it's uh, I know somebody even, the '80s synth revival has even gone as far as to bring back, the specific styles of '80s synth music. Like there are people who are in the genre of Italo disco, which was its own sort of '70s Italian, uh, just sort of, I don't know, its own style of '80s dance synth music. And I think people, we still like all that stuff. Their songs are classics for a reason. Um, but yeah, it's just a matter of, classical music never died. Like I'm sure on the planet there's always a live orchestra somewhere in the world playing a Beethoven or a Bach or a Mozart or Tchaikovsky or whatever. Um, so I don't think those things ever really die. I don't think styles die. I think people are just discovering that they don't have to play to the radio. They don't have to play to what everything the way everything sounds nowadays. I mean, really, sound to me and the quality of music in a time period, I feel like it's mainly defined by the quality in the actual EQing and the mastering of it, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
But I mean, if you go back and listen to like a vinyl, rock album, the recording techniques, well, maybe not the techniques, but the sort of equipment, the sound, it all going to vinyl, everything being on the same medium. It sort of adds, I think, the sort of time period to the type of music. So I think, um, you know, playing around with something in a program like Fruity Loops, I feel like you can easily, if you've never played with the program before, I think, and you tried playing with it in 10 minutes, you would probably have something that reminds you of, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, period, as far as music goes, if you went in and tried to make a piece of music right away, it would sound very kind of cheesy, very simple, and it would really kind of sound like something you would have heard on like a PBS special in like 1991. And that's just 10 minutes of not knowing what sort of go with the time period. So I've seen a lot of people. I've heard a lot of music now that reminds me of, and I think you can even hear that in rock music. A lot of rock bands that try to mimic bands from the '60s, '70s. If the sound is extremely crisp and extremely really well overly produced, they put all this tons of money into it. They're not going to get that sort of revival feel that they're going for, because that wasn't the deal back then. It was it was just a different standard of doing things. The quality they didn't have. The equipment's different, I guess is what I'm saying. But then there are people nowadays who are like, we want to make a band that sounds like a 70s rock band. So the first thing they do is they get a guitar from the 70s. They get an amp from the 70s. They get their tube amplifiers and their things. And I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's like going back and playing a Nintendo. I mean, yeah, you can go back and laugh at it and be like, haha, look at this. Look at these stupid graphics. At the same time, these kids aren't going to beat a Nintendo game. You remember how hard it was to beat a Nintendo game? Shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, number one, you couldn't save anything, so you had to sit there and like stare at the screen. Uh, you couldn't get cheat codes. You couldn't, the game literally did not help you out as far as go do this, go do that. Like, if you came to a certain point, and you felt stuck, you were pretty much fucked.
Man,
But I
yeah, man,
mean,
yeah. I mean, it's just, that whole thing
it,
with
I,
like, go on.
well, I was just gonna say the things are still just as complicated. It's done in a different way, and that's just it. I mean, anything can be made relevant nowadays, and it always was that way. Just I think people are now realizing it with the way, just with the so many artists being out, the technology, and being able to put yourself out all over the world and have people listen to you, like you, and yeah, it's just. I don't know where I was going with that, but we'll look up Low Fidelity All Stars.
No, I know. I, I think one of the things you tapped into there, right? It's quite interesting. Um, it's that whole fascination about I think there'll always be music regardless of, and that's one of the things when on this planet right now there's people playing music in the sense of you want to call it music with just their throats or any kind of instrument that's possible. And I think the thing is, I think it's a very human condition because to make music yourself, you've got to do a very complex piece of, you've got to sort of read the notes. Then you've got to, play with it with, another band, another musician, or you've got to play with, create something on a computer, whatever it is, and then you've got to put a feeling into it. And that kind of, it's one of what I loved most about when really turned me on to because Broken Opium Table, because what I loved about what they particularly what he's doing with Glenn is he puts a lot of that essence, what I just was just speaking about, that whole human element of putting emotion, feeling into the tunes. And do you know what I mean? And you can, whether you like, I mean, I'm not, I mean, I'm sure that there's a certain section of people that will love Broken Opium Table. There's a lot of people that'll be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to that because it's, there's a lot of impending kind of feeling and emotion. I mean, I love the first tune I ever heard from theirs was Music for an Impending Apocalypse, which the piano just doing that boom, dum, and it was just like, wow, that's such a simple note on probably an old piano. I'm fascinated when he comes on. I'm going to ask him how he recorded it, if it was from an old piano or it was from a loop or something. But just that simple low E or D note. And that's what I mean. It's a part of the human, I think, condition, and it's quite interesting. I don't know if it was one that's it was made in used in your part of the world over here, but over here, kind of like I read the state or the government or whatever you want to call it, one of their branches. They were trying to recommend that people listen to no more than an hour of music a day. And when questioned why, they were saying because it can lead to because it can lead to different states of human emotion which aren't healthy for the human condition. I was like, I'm sorry, but I thought, where are we going in this world? We're being told we can't listen to an hour more than an hour's of music.
Oh wow. Yep. An hour of music. That's ridiculous. Jesus. I just
Well,
saw something. Somebody in New York, I guess they're protesting some guy who's. They're protesting his speech, and I'm just like, I didn't see the name. I didn't read too much of the article, but I was just like, I guess no matter what this guy did or whatever, like he's freedom of what happened? Freedom of speech. What happened to that? Like all of a sudden, somebody wants to give a speech and they're protesting it. in a supposedly free country, which I guess it is their freedom to protest it, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I guess I just see things. I guess I feel like it's more logical. Like if you're gonna have a free society, and somebody's gonna say, well, this person's allowed to do a speech, and you're allowed to protest if you want. What are you gonna protest? The fact that he's doing the speech, or protest the person and like have signs that say don't listen to him, or like he is wrong, do your research, uh, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of, I guess rather trying to educate people rather than just shutting something down without necessarily understanding the entire aspect of it.
Yeah, well, man, I had a close friend of mine, and way back in the day, we had a discussion on this very lines, and he came out with one of the most immortal lines that I've always stood in my head. And I know if you're listening out there, you know who you are, and this line that he came up with. And the line was, "The system wants you to rebel." And I've always remembered that for like 20 years of my life. That's such a He hit the nail perfectly on the head. This is, for you to rebel is exactly what the system wants you to do. Even for the whole fact of like, oh, you've got the freedom to rebel, but all you're doing is, like we've discussed many times, and me and you, my friend, it's just all distractions. Whenever I saw that Occupy movement, and I see people doing it, I think, okay, great. So you all you're doing is you're like a bunch of angry animals all marching down to the head farmer and saying, I'm not happy with the certain way you're spending my farm money or whatever. But it's like, that's what the farmer wants. He gives you what you want, you all shuffle away, and you're back over. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but I don't know what it's like over your part of the world, but over here, they're trying to, because we've got an election coming up in the next sort of like 2 months. And one of the ones that they're saying if they get back into power, they want to put they want to charge people for the policing of a protest. So basically they set the rules down saying, right, if you want to protest, you've got to ask permission, and to get that permission, it needs stewarding. And now the stewarding has got to be paid by the protesters themselves. So then you basically got to have this massive fund to even go down and protest. And it's like, what kind of police state are we living in, man, where this is going on? But it's all part of the game we play. Like I say, it's shifting lines of, like you say.
I don't know, but again, like I feel like that's just one of those things. Like if you're gonna protest, know what the fuck you're getting into. I mean, expecting anything from the government or the police as far as like protecting your ass. I mean, well, that's your problem, you know. I mean,
Exactly
if
right.
they, but at the same time, but at the same time, they would say something like, "Well, we're gonna, if you want cops there, you're gonna need to pay," but then they're gonna make it mandatory, you know. Like, oh, you want to protest? Well, if you want to protest, you have to have the permit for it, you have to ask for permission, and you have to pay the cops because you have to have them there.
Yeah. Well, man, it was quite fascinating. It was good, and it's one of the things that definitely people go and watch yourself. And it was put out by Vice. And again, I know I bang on about Vice a lot, but they put one out on Vice News this week, and it was called Surveillance State, and it was all about a state in New Jersey basically it was one that Christie was in charge of. So you'll probably know the exact state. It's Malcolm, the Christie guy. Where state he's in charge of? Is it New Jersey, South or
Wait, are
North?
you saying you mean county or?
Yeah, it was one of the counties in under under uh, under Christie's
Okay,
jurisdiction. But anyway, what they done, it was the highest.
or
It
one
had
of
the
the
highest.
cities. Well,
It had the highest gun rate and murder rate in the whole of America. That was claim to fame. So basically, what he did, Christie came in, he disarmed the whole police force and brought in a new one, called them a new name, which I can't remember. But these were like RoboCop jobs. They're all like this new military outfit, basically just flooding the streets. That was fair enough. You think, okay, police everywhere, because it was a big place in New Jersey where they're saying where all the drugs all go in and out of. So people are, it's quite a sort of bad place in the sense of its deprivation and stuff like this. But the point was they put cameras everywhere, and not only they put cameras everywhere, they put these surveillance, because it's new high tech stuff, which could basically all over the city they could triangulate when any gunshot was fired and know exactly where the person fired it, so they could be there within like, and I think their call out time was 3 minutes or something. but the people living there were just like caged animals. They were saying like, we can't do anything. If we stand outside our house, that's a violation. And they were talking to a police guy at the end, and
Wow.
they asked the police guy, said, well, what's your definition of a police state? And he said, well, we're one where people aren't allowed freedom, they feel that there's police overriding them, and that they haven't got the freedom to do anything they want to do. But this isn't going on right now. And as they're doing it, he's just putting the camera out the window. It's just lines of policemen everywhere, hassling everyone that's walking past, And you think, man, this is just going on. Like I say, definitely recommend it, man. I mean, but this is what I'm saying. It's just, it's amazing, man. That people want to protest, but they don't protest that shit. All they want to protest is, I don't know, a whale being killed or whatever. It's like, man, there's people, human beings living like this, and nobody's on the
Yeah.
streets complaining.
Yeah. Even I don't know. I like you said, they want you to rebel. So I feel like I've always kind of had this just sort of bad feeling about like the idea of taking it to the streets. And while I feel there's I mean, I guess it does and can bring attention to the what you're doing, but I don't think anything has with a sort of taking it to a protest in a large capacity anyway. Uh, but I think again, it's one of those things, just kind of like how we've talked about with cryptocurrency, and I liken this strategy to a lot of things that I do, which is basically just turning my back to it,
Hmm.
and not in the sense of ignoring it, but in the sense of not playing that game, not playing into the role of what they want me to play into, of choosing sides, choosing right and wrong, and acting like I'm the big defender of everything. So just like with cryptocurrency or even with music in general, and the mainstream, like to me it doesn't exist, because I know it's there, I know it's happening, I know what's going on, but it's something that has always been there. It's something that has always been going on, and the thing that changes it is, I don't know, politicians. When the money's into it, that's when they start to change things. And it seems like they distract us while they're sitting around trying to figure out what to do to distract us more, so that they can, you know, do their plans to uh, do their secret plans, so that they can reveal their bigger plans of, whatever. Because obviously we know what, for everything that Big G shows us, or that the Army shows us, there's probably a good 9 or 10 things that they're not showing us, if not more.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even the things they are, but that's the sad thing, man. Even the things that we do see, people just turn. That's what always gets me. When I see people protesting, and do you know what I mean, and getting really riled about, ringing in. I mean, I know you've got Rush Limbaugh and stuff. And we've got equivalents over here, and there's these shock jocks. People are ringing in, and, oh, immigrants this or whatever that, and the price of petrol this, and price of food that, and it's just this constant merry-go-round that they just put people on, and you think, okay, all these people, you're all complaining about whatever little subject they're going to put in front of you for you to all dance around and get all annoyed about, and it's yet, do you know what I mean? We spend, I mean, nothing's changed, man, since the Bill Hicks days. We spend billions upon trillions of money on weapons that we're dropping on other human beings, just on the same rock, but just on another side. And nobody's up in arms about that. Nobody's bothered about that shit. No, no, no. We're worried about the fact that our coffee's going up, or the oil price is going down, or gas is now being restricted. It's like, come on, people. There's far bigger issues than what the price of petrol is in realities, and that's what always annoys me, because you don't, this shit, like you said, then it's not hidden away. This is stuff they're doing blatantly right in front of us, and nobody's bothered about it. So what this, let alone all the stuff they're saying they're doing behind the scenes, but then that's where they get away with it, because people, that are stupid enough, and it's saddened me, man. It's 20 years. We were talking in the last podcast, but I've been watching a lot of Bill this week. That's 20 odd years, 21 years, and not a lot has changed. It's a lot of great things happen, and we're connected, and it's a great thing, and I'm always positive about that, and I'm always bigging that up, and I think a lot of technology is going to come along to help us, but as we've had that argument with technology, we don't know what if we don't keep hold of this complexity and we don't try to bridge that gap, we're going to be losing it, and that could easily just overwhelm us. And it's and not a lot has changed, in the sense of where I was watching a lot of the Bill joke, the sort of stand-up shows. Man, you can stand up on a show right now, and it's exactly the same thing. All you got to do is just change the names of the bands. Everything, it's just the same. Even the fact that the Clinton's still in power. I mean, as Rich was saying last week, it's ridiculous. 21 years and we're still caught in the same distraction that they played 20 years ago.
Yep, and it's they're still talking about the same things that they were talking about 21 years ago. They're still trying to push the same bills and the same, maybe not, it's not word for word the same, but it's a device. It's just, and I mean that in the script writing sense. It's just a device. Like Rob Lowe, I think Rob Lowe said it best in his part in Thank You for Not Smoking. Did you ever see that movie?
No, no, no.
Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but I remember there was this Rob Lowe line where I like Rob Lowe was like a Hollywood director, and Aaron Eckhart's talking to him because basically they're going to do some sort of like sponsorship where uh, I think it was like a cigarette company was going to produce the movie. And so they were going to talk about like how to incorporate the cigarettes into the movie, and there was one. Rob Lowe was like, well, he's like, say they're in space, right, and they're lying on a bed, and they just got done having sex, and he lights the cigarette, and then in like no gravity, like lets go of the cigarette in her direction, and it like spins through the air in slow motion, and then lands in her lips, and she takes a drag from it. Aaron Eckert's like, that's great, I love it, but can you really be smoking in like a in a spaceship like out in space? And Rob Lowe was like, he's the invisible smoke gun machine, and it allows people to smoke in space, and that's where he's like, he literally said it, and that's how movies in the 90s a lot of times were. I mean, that's what the flux capacitor was in uh, Back to the Future. It was the flux capacitor is what fueled them into going through traveling through time. It was just a device. I mean, it's a great device. Some devices are better than others, but at the same time, these things in politics. My uncle said it to my dad best years ago, where he just said, it's he's and he's got to be up in his I don't know, late 60s, maybe 70, and he said it's the politicians have all been going on about the same thing since he was a kid.
Mm.
And he just doesn't even bother with it anymore. He doesn't play into the game because they're still just the rules haven't changed. Well, apparently the rules have changed because popular vote doesn't get you in, but I don't know. They change the rules as they go, but it's all devices. It's all just the same things over and over and over again. Nobody's changing anything.
No,
It's still war.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the
Hitler's
thing.
gone. They're still evil.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that that's people have been writing for this about 150 odd years. I mean, you go back, like we talk about a lot, don't we? Some of the writers that wrote some of the science fiction books. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day that, and again, it's just my research obviously wasn't that I've never spoken to anyone, but the amount of panic that just an awesome world, the War of the Worlds unleashed on the States, just putting out on the radio, and how the panic it caused. Do you think that's such a short snap of time that it caused all that panic in the States, didn't it? People thinking that there was an invasion going on because on the radio there was but they wouldn't know any different. It's amazing, really, when you think it's like you say, this short space in time, and but it's quite funny, really, because the article I was reading, the guy was going, "Oh, we would never be fooled like that again now," and he was like mocking the people back then and sort of saying how simple they were. And I thought, yeah, you wait till they put this Google Magic shit out, or the Magic Leap stuff out, and we're seeing alien invasions, and we'll see how shit scared people are, man.
Just the, I'm sure I'm sure the if the truth hasn't come, I'm not going to debate on it, but if the truth hasn't come out, but even if it's, people are still debating that, and hopefully we reach a point where somebody gets it fucking right and just says like, no, this is the answer. There is actually no more debating it. We have the answer. Please just shut up and worry about better things.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, will that day ever happen? I think it will do, because I think one of the things that where it's inevitable, man, and I think this is what's going on right now in the world right now is that the balance is starting to be weighed up, and that's this is the thing when we talk about the simulation between technology and where we are in the world right now, because we live in this first world, but as we know, man, on this rock right now, there's so many millions of people living in older and stressed, in ways that we don't understand. They see time in different ways. They have connections with different things, and how they see tribal setups and how they communicate and stuff. And if you just gave them just the little bit of technology and then tap them into a mind, maybe they'll be the ones that shift the world. Maybe we're just like the dinosaurs, and we're just going to be that's our snapping time. Do you know what I mean? It's one of the things that being from this part of the world, we knew it. We saw our empire rise and fall. We were tapping onto this last week, but we saw this, and empires can rise and fall, and we don't know that the next great awakening is going to be. And they will look back. I thought this the other day. People will flee cities, because how many people are only in cities because they're working there, because they're forced to go and work in a box. But once you have the technology to take that away, and you don't need cities anymore, how many people are going to live in cities? Not many. People have always wanted to escape to the countryside.
Oh yeah, well, I think like what we were talking about. I forget which podcast, but I know Nick brought it up. uh, the idea of the ants, and I think it might have been Ben on the Ben podcast, where he brought up the just I think we're going to be looking more towards nature and looking at other species and seeing what they do. And if we did if we did tap into a tribe and gave them a little bit of technology, and I'm sure they would have things that could be, they would know so much more about nature and animals and insects, and just from their centuries of passed down knowledge and the lineage of experience and that sort of thing. And it could be very applicable to what we are doing, because like we were just saying about empires rising and falling. No, no other species on this planet is going to really give a shit about something like that. You're not going to find jellyfish swimming in the ocean like, yeah, our clan of jelly, we got the biggest clan of jellyfishes. Like, we eat the best. We eat better than any jellyfish in the world. Like, no, tigers don't do that. Like, yeah, yeah, you can have, obviously spouts between clans of monkeys or gorillas, or things, any species, whatever. But they don't compare themselves like we do. They don't have to have, uh, there might be the sort of one on top, or if like there's a tribe of monkeys in Africa, and say they're in this one area, yeah, there might be one other group of monkeys that wants to be more dominant, but that doesn't mean it's in that situation they usually just kill them all. They don't integrate any of them into the society, and they don't flaunt things. They don't act better. They don't act it's just a territorial thing. And obviously we're above that. At the same time, we still have the ego that's well, we're the empire now. We're on top, which means we're right because we have money and we have lots of people and everyone loves our movies.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that separates when you, as we, as a, obviously it's the duality between the two worlds. I mean, we live in a world like you just said then, when it all hinders and centers around money, and what that money, because it's been printed, and have the whole, people, anyone can go and study and know how, the idea of just printing money by one source and what that does, it gives them all the power. But that, if you compare, like you just said then, everything's just based around money, 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 money. And if you go into the Papua New Guinea or into Africa or into Australia, and you go into Aborigines or into South America, they give a toss about money, man. Money means fuck all to them. It's just it's not like the world is, there's trade going on, but even that trade tends to be between tribes and tribes amongst themselves. It's just like you said then. It's this collaboration between human beings and going, well, we're in this little thing, and like us, I've been lucky enough to witness, man. There's people living in that environment. When I go about the beach before, when we woke up one morning and some a village next door. They think that village next door, about 20 miles down the road, have basically come down and taken the fin of a dolphin and just dumped it in our pozo, which is a well, which is our little kind of like fresh water supply, and they just dumped this kind of finless dolphin in it, and they were fuming about it. They were absolutely like, no, 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 what are you doing? And that's what I mean. What I'm trying to say is there's a natural correlation. The more you go back into nature to collaborate with the animals around you, you're not fighting them. You go, okay. So like if ants come into your territory because they want to nick your plastic to make their thing, you don't try to fight them because you're never going to win. So you move around them or you accommodate them, and that's what I mean. Is that duality between that side of the world where there's no money and people living completely in harmony with the world that's around them, to a money orientated concrete city, the future is cold. That's the duality of world, and it's which one's going to win. And I think the more, what I'm trying to say, the more technology gives people the ability to, I'm not forced to go and live in that cold world. I have to go and sit and get in an elevator and travel up, 50 floors, and let alone the hour and a half I've done to travel the 20 miles to get to this crappy job, to sit in a room and type on a machine. Now that's like what they did back in the, go back 200 years, 200 years ago, man. People were living in workhouses and sitting there, running between cotton wheels and stuff. Technology always means that people move out. That's the point, and that's going to be the interesting duality that's going to go on in our lifetime, is whether the money wins out and we all become living concrete jungles and police states, which we were talking about earlier on, or whether the other side comes out and we just all become part of a bigger ecosystem that's that we're living on a rock. I don't know. That's the interesting sort of dilemma, or the thing that's the way that's ahead of us. That's the two paths that are ahead of us as humanity, isn't it? It's up to us to decide which one we go down.
Well, yeah, it's just the whole feed the whole idea. The ego, have to have nice stuff, have to have, whatever. Like as big as a guy, I have no problem. I actually prefer to buy movies secondhand. Buying something, spending that money on something new. And when you see, especially just because you see how many DVDs people have, it's not like somebody who wants to have a movie collection. You're not just gonna have, 10 movies and that's it. Like, no, you're gonna have a shitload. That's just a ton, a monstrosity of DVDs. And yeah, if you did pull full price for those, and then like if I were to look at my DVD collection and think if I paid full price for all of these and like literally added that up and then compared that to how many hours of work I had to do to buy all that stuff, fuck no. Like,
Hmm. Well, man,
but it's well, some people want it clean too. They want their very clean. They have to have this looking very and like a vanity thing. Because it's a lot of things show, and they want people to, it looks good, it looks, whatever. I don't know. For some reason, there's this. A lot of people have that idea of like clean and neat, and somehow was it like sophisticated, I guess, which it's just I think an extremely just human consort. Just the fact that we feel like we're so perfect, we need to surround ourselves with perfection, and if it's not, then we're not being human.
Man, these are the signs of our. I think if you look, as we all will do, because time is a complete illusion. If you were to jump, 10,000 years down the line, how they will judge us as a civilization, not in the matter of centuries, but in the matter of thousands of years, they will look at the go, oh, that was a set of humans who loved straight lines. They wanted to impose this order, this straight triangular lines and everything uniform. That's what they wanted to impose, and I think that's how we'll be judged. And I think because I think it's going to be inevitable that we will just. You can see it now with the birth of 4D printing and stuff like that. More naturalistic shapes are coming around. As originally, like you saw it in the plane, the car or the plane started off as really boxy, just and then they followed nature and they saw that aerodynamics in a fish worked, and that's what I mean. That's how buildings will come, and we will look back and go, oh yeah, that's the where we are now. We live in the age of we try to impose order and straightness, and like you said, all this arrogance of our times onto the world around us instead of trying to live in the mold ourselves around us. America's a perfect example. You have blocks. That's a perfect example. You have
Oh yeah.
blocks everywhere. You don't know what roundabouts are, man. You don't know what windy roads are. You don't know. You don't know the joys of trying to do, windy cul-de-sacs and crescents and stuff. You don't know that joy, man. It's all blocks.
I mean, we have in my area, in my suburb, we actually just got like two roundabouts put in, and like less than a mile from me, two roundabouts, and then the cul-de-sac. Yeah, we got a couple of those. Um, but yeah, it is a lot of blocks and stuff. Yeah, it's America. But yeah, the thing, even with the straight lines though, is like people will look back and some will say, they're the ones that like straight lines, but then somebody else will say, it wasn't that they like straight lines, it's that they were told by the ones in charge that it was more efficient to have straight lines and it was cheaper but in reality they actually had more the ones in charge of the government had more straight lines, and they knew they were going to lose money if they switched to curved lines. So they just told everyone lies so that they could hurry up and use these straight lines and to
Hmm.
propaganda.
Yeah, man, completely propaganda. I mean, it's it's also that, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier on with when you have too much of anything and you have opulence. Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I can't remember exactly. I think it's either Ivory Coast, but it's one of the in the Horn of the North Africa. Um, Completely replicant on scale, on the marble, on everything. There's a Vatican part, exactly a replicant of the Vatican, sitting in the jungle, right in the middle of like, I think it's Ivory Coast, but literally the same scale for scale, marble for marble, everything, all paid by the Vatican. And it just sits there empty because no one around it, all the local tribes are like, no, we've got our tribal kind of stuff, man. We're not going to go to church. You're not going to. So it just sits there. There's this big monument in the middle of the jungle that's just cost billions to make. And and it's just that arrogance of mankind again. It's just again what I'm trying to say. When you have too much of money, you just build shit like that. And then they go back and then the historians go, oh wow, look, they had multiple kind of the Catholic churches everywhere, and it's just no, they're just empty vessels that it's interesting, man. I mean, the perfect example out of where you live, man. I mean, that's particularly about America because I mean, maybe 100 years ago you were in the middle of cornfields, and now you got these cities. That just, I mean, if you looked at America as from a time aspect, you'd be like, whoa, look what's happened in America, man. You were nothing, and it's just now it's just all big buildings, blocks, thousands of people, everything. It's like you've done that in 100 years. It's just ridiculous how quickly
Oh,
America.
they one of the like I was just looking to see if it was snowing, which it still is. Uh, One of the things they taught me, I don't know if they taught everyone, because that's how school is. But one of the things we were always kind of told was that America used to be you could swing from you could swing from tree to tree and go from coast to coast. Like
Whoa.
that's how many trees were here, and that's how big the land was. But then, yeah, you look now, and it's there's one tree here, one tree there, lots of parking lots.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I mean, that alone. I mean, population-wise. I mean,
Again, it's just cheaper. Like, it's cheaper and easier to, tear out an entire field of corn and put in a, parking lot than it is to dig underground on a spot that is, a quarter of the size and, have like an underground parking garage or, something like that, which, people are like, oh, underground, like that's dangerous. Like one of the main reasons it's dangerous is because we don't fucking do it enough. Where, the government does it more than anybody, with their huge tunnels that they build underground. But um, I feel like as far as the uh, what is it, the more mainstream companies go, building companies and stuff like that, like you don't see that. I mean, it like I said, it's cheaper. It's just cheaper to wipe out this entire, field and make that a parking lot. It's so much cheaper to do that than it is to build something that would go under, house the same amount of cars. But it's yeah, the money, the rules. So, the corporations are going to do they built this giant grocery store over down the street from me. And the grocery store that was here, I had one that was even closer to my house. It's called Kroger. They moved from that one spot to this new spot, which basically they killed a bunch of corn, put in this giant grocery store to sell cans of corn, and wiped out this huge parking lot, put in like a bank, they put in a strip mall with like a Pizza Hut and a China King, which is a Chinese restaurant, and then what else? Kroger has a gas station, but then across the street from that's another gas station. They just built a highway that's going through there, so this highway, they had to buy all that farmland, and because it all used to be farms, and they had to buy it all, and demolish all of it to build another highway.
dude, I mean, mate, do you know the thing about that as well is I wrote a piece, well, you'll call it a poem or something, back in 2004, just after I got back from living in Argentina, man, and I wrote it. It was called CapCom. The whole idea of CapCom was that it was the collaboration of capitalism and communism, and this is a system we're living under, this lovely purple state where it's all a bit of this and a bit of that. But the point
I was gonna say Capcom made Street Fighter 2.
oh, okay, perfect. There you go. But the point being was it was like this is I've seen this now, let alone every city I go to in England, but now I've seen it in every part, and I've seen it in other parts of the world as well. All these new cities, they all look the same. I bet if I walk around what you just described in Toledo, it would look exactly like I was walking around in Leeds shopping centre, or they all have exactly the same shit. They're all the same Starbucks, the same everything. It's just this one molded pattern that's put all around the world, all everywhere, and it's
Yeah,
horrible.
there's a Starbucks in the big grocery store they built. It's a small Starbucks, but it's a Starbucks.
Yeah, and that's the same, man. And that's what I mean. It goes from just being okay, all right, we have brands that are the same everywhere, but then it becomes all the architecture looks the same. Everyone's got like, oh yeah, yeah, you've all got the same waterfront. Whether you're living, whether I go down to Miami or you go down to wherever you live in, it's like, yeah, yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this same block of flats everywhere. I've seen these same apartments everywhere around the world. There's no imagination, man. It's just, it's this is what I'm talking about. It's like when you're concentrating on money and it's all about just putting people in boxes. There's no need for imagination. You don't need to do like the one in Spain where they're still building it now, the cathedral, and that's just going to take hundreds of years to build just by putting these weird bits and pieces together. But no, just shove people into boxes, and you know. It's it's the condition of the first world as we live it, right now, man, and it's just getting more and more and more. I mean, like Jimmy would say, the amount of prices that people pay to live in such a small condition, like animals, they're living in little boxes and paying, what was he saying, $1,500 for the privilege?
Oh yeah, well even we have a one of the big crazes that's going on over here now is like super small homes. Um, have you seen anything about this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's like a TV show now that's called like Tiny House Hunting or Tiny Home Hunting or something like that. And these people are like, and it's going to, small is small, but at the same time, like if you're living in one location, I feel like if you're going to be, stuck in that one spot for, a couple to say, well, we're looking for a place that's, 260 square feet. Just be like, what? And there are people on this TV show that are like, yeah, we're looking for 260 square feet or 400 square feet or whatever, and it's like, dude, I know you want small, but Jesus, like live in the first world a little bit. I mean, that's one of the luxuries here. But it's the prices they charge for them are absurd. I mean, way more than 1,500 a month. I mean, these people would buy them for maybe $150,000, something like that. And but it's at some of them will have really great locations, like on the beach in California, in Southern California, and it's like this beautiful coastal area spot. But at the same time, like you said, they just wanted the money, so they built all these extremely small houses, these extremely small spaces, and it was like, yep, we're gonna get as much money as we can out of all of this. We're gonna squeeze as many people in here as we can.
Yeah, and did you know the thing is, man? It's like the concept actually, the idea of living small is great. I mean, you could go back to what you're
It
saying.
is great.
You go back to that's what I'm saying. You go to any sort of tribal place around the world, and they're all living in a tiny little house. But the difference is, and this is what I'm saying, it's all about mindset. It's not about the house or what you live in. But the trouble, we live in a world, particularly in the first world, where our houses are seen as a reflection of ourselves, and it's where we spend all our time. But the guy who's living in the middle of the jungle, or the middle of the savannah, or the middle of a desert or something, his house is just his shelter. His world is whatever he can reach. These people are living in small little houses, and their reach is maybe down to the block as far as they can walk, and they won't even walk it. They get in a car and they travel, the 2 miles down to the supermarket. It's like that's where we've gone wrong as a species. We've become this is all, like we said, we spend our life building around these illusions of things that are important that, we keep saying it again, man. This we know. We face our mortality every day of our lives, and you know it doesn't matter whether you live in a house that's 200 and whatever square feet, or you're living in a mansion. None of it's going with you, and it's just all going to be just turned into mush and return to the earth. So why waste your time on it, man?
Well, that was the thing too. Is these people always they get to one spot, and the realtor will always show them something, or they'll mention it or whatever. But they always talk about the storage space, and it's like, dude, if you shouldn't even be questioning that. Like, if you have a bunch of stuff that you're gonna need stored, get a place. Like, don't just cram your like. They're talking about like, oh, like we'll build shelves here and we'll build some shelves here and some shelves here, and it's like, yeah, because that's what you want. You want to just be surrounded by shelves. Like, you want to be boxed in like this with just shelves of your stuff. And it was like you were kind of saying though. These people were trying to make homes out of these stationary little spots that they're actually going to be spending most of their time in, most likely.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people that would be, um, my one friends in Austin, Texas, Lex and Travis. They're always looking into small spaces, and I even sent them some of those conduit pictures that Adi had talked about.
Yep.
The because I was like, these, and I was telling them all about them. Like, yeah, it's a kit that you buy, and you can get different sizes for it, and they tell you, they give you all the stuff for it. They tell you how to build it, and then like 80 was saying, you could actually get a government grant. You could actually, get money back to build this thing. It's like fireproof. Um, what is it? It's like hurricane resistant, all that stuff, like tornado resistant. Saves like 20 to 30% on like heating and cooling and like those small spaces. But at the same time, like I know those two, and those two, they're gonna get out and do things. They're not just gonna sit at home and or even if they did, they're gonna have it on a plot of land where they're gonna go outside and do things on the land. And I mean, I know a lot of people that will go out and do things on the land, but 260 square feet.
Exactly, man. And do you know the worst thing about? I mean, this is one of the ones that why I've never been attracted to that whole idea because it's not only the size of the pad you buy, but you kind of like you're saying that all right, you can move, but you're basically saying this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life, or for a good 25 years of my life, however it takes me to pay the mortgage off, or however I'm paying it off. And it's kind of like, well, as a species, surely as why we've got to where we have right now, we're generally nomadic. We like to roam. And you think, well, if I had that much money and I wasn't working and I didn't need to work for the man and I got enough money to buy a house and do what you just described your friends are doing, you'd be like, well, would you just want to travel the world and just and do that kind of stuff rather than sort of like spending your house feathering a nest on a box that's just going to be left behind when you're gone? I don't know. It's just how I see the world.
Oh yeah, well even like my friend Ben in Colorado, just he was posting some pictures that they built like their own, I guess it was like a vegetable and herb, like outside garden tent. It might even have been a greenhouse type thing, a greenhouse tent. But it was, and they basically built it like all themselves, did everything, whatever. Like, even something like that. Like he put in the time, like people used to, and they built it themselves, and it's not something that. And I'm sure if he wanted to, he could probably take it with him. But at the same time, if he can leave whenever he wants, and add that thing into the price of when he leaves, and person will have their own gardening tent, and then he can go build another one because he built it. Like he doesn't have to worry about because saying something like, "Oh, this is one of a kind," or "This is, this has sentimental value," or "Oh my God, we lived in this house for 20 years." Like,
Exactly, man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I just sort of think it's I don't know if you did you catch, which I think this is one of the things that we can dig ourselves into little tiny holes and yeah, exactly, man. I just read your message. Yeah, perfect. But
I keep forgetting the four doesn't work on here, so.
But it's one of the ones I don't know if you caught the video talking about you just mentioned that Ben put out about that 98 that NASA had made detected a signal from the Andromeda galaxy with a message that they spent years decoding it, and they decoded it, and it basically just said, "Help us! We've destroyed our own planet, and we can't leave." It hasn't been a natural thing that's destroyed us; it's been our own weapons and our own this, but we can't leave. Help us! Help us! And they just decided. Now, obviously, the whole thing wasn't transcripted, but that was the sort of point of the video. It was like maybe that's just maybe we're just another what I'm trying to say is maybe in this massive universe that we live in, it's huge and beyond comprehension of how big it is. Maybe there's a billion of us, so we all get to a certain point and we just don't get beyond that level. We just all blow ourselves up. We're just one of the experiments, of many experiments going on constantly in the universe. You know what I mean? I hope not. I try to be a bit more optimistic than because I don't want to think the future is cold. I want to think the future is nice and warm, but not
Well, no,
too
I
hot
think the
though.
future's. I think it's just up to us. Um, I don't like I said on the other podcast. I don't think we could destroy the planet even if we wanted to. I think it is a uh, to a certain extent. I think it is its own entity. It is its own sentient being, and it is aware of uh, the fungus and the mold and the viruses growing on its back. And
Yeah.
I think if it really did think that we were uh, a big threat to us, I think if the Earth really thought that we were a big threat to it, or that we were going to kill it and everything on it, I think it would do something to protect itself.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, I liken it to what what we've all lived under is fear, and that fear is like it's the beast in the room, and we see it and we run, and we run in the dark, and we run in the dark, and we fall over, and we stumble, and we hit ourselves, and we're like ah. And if, all we should do is just stand and look at the beast and realize it's nothing. And that's where that's. I remember growing up. This is so vivid to me because I grew up in the era of complete, watching every. I mean, like I mentioned the film to you, Threads, and the whole idea of complete, nuclear, annihilation of the whole planet. That was a real reality that we were fed in school. We were given lectures about it. We were shown films, and like you said, we never did it. And that's why I'm optimistic. 'Cause I think, well, we never did it. It's just it's the fear beast because ultimately that was the whole point of it. It was madness. It was mutual assured destruction for all of us. So basically that's why I think you're absolutely right because what they're going to do, dig themselves in a pit and wait 100 years to come out and hopefully the nuclear winter's over. It doesn't suit us as a species to destroy ourselves, but it suits the species or the people in power to put the big beast to fear and hope we run in the dark, tripping over logs and rocks and hurting our knees and crying and run back to the comfort of the fire of the government. That's what I think's going on.
Well, I'm not saying we wouldn't do that. I'm just saying I think if we were going to, like that you kind of said about the message, like somebody said we destroyed our planet. Like I don't think we could ever get to that point because I don't think our planet would let us. And um, I don't know. I feel as far as like a nuke or something like that, if somebody's gonna profit, they might let something happen. They might create something on their own. It's if it helps them get what they want, and by they I obviously mean the big G, because they're the ones that for some reason have control of these things, these weapons. But yeah, they would let it happen. I mean, it's history has proven that. They've already proved themselves to be that sort of entity that will just sort of let things happen to get their own way, and it doesn't seem to matter uh, the damage to uh, people's lives, but not only their lives, but just the mentality of the world in general. Just look at they let 9/11 happen. I mean, at the very basic, uh, I think one of the more basic things you can say about it is, they let Big G knew about it, they let it happen, and whether or not you believe the entire thing, whether or not you believe the conspiracies, whatever, like in their own way, they were not completely oblivious to it, and they stood to gain from it, and they did gain from it, and we stay. So it is something that is still, in reality all throughout the world, gets people arguing and does whatever, and in the end, they didn't care about the price of the lives or anything like that. So as far as a bigger weapon, yeah, who knows? They're pretty crazy. We've talked about that.
Yeah, man, mate, the machine feeds on human blood, literally. If I mean, I mean, like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
it's not only right now as we speak. There's thousands of people dying right now under this. There's people being drone hit right now. There's people being under militia war. There's people being,
Yep.
you know,
There's
like
there's secret revolutions. Probably more than there's probably a good handful that are probably being funded by us right now, or we're giving weapons to, or we're selling weapons to, or that, that's That's
That's
how it
why.
happens.
That's why I say, man. That's why I think it's so important just to keep as much as you can, as much as we can do without being, you know, anything other than being real. Is to keep doing this because it's mindsets. Because it's one of the things you can definitely learn from history is that there's a definite herd mentality. When we were speaking before the podcast about, I was speaking to George, and he was telling me about when he went to Nanjing, and how the Chinese just washed over and massacre so many thousands of Japanese people. They just washed over, and there's that herd mentality where people will almost, because of belief and symbols, they will literally overlook factually what's in front of them, and that is definitely a truth about the human condition that we've seen over and over again, and that's why it's important that we, like I say, we keep being real, and we do what we're doing, because that's the yin and yang of life, if you want to say. It's those who have the urge to destroy, and there's the urge to create, and that's the duality of life, isn't it?
Yep, I think you hit it right on the head. There's those that want to create, those that want to destroy, and there's just I feel like the ones that want to create don't get into politics.
No.
It doesn't seem like it, or it seems like if they do, they sort of find at some point, and I don't know. I still feel like even if you have a good heart and everything's in the right place, and you still step into that arena, I feel like you're still playing the game, even though obviously they are the ones that are in charge of us, but at the same time, they still don't listen to us. I mean, that's really just it. They do what they want, regardless of this net neutrality thing. I'm really surprised that at that decision.
Yeah. Well.
I'm amazed that we're still allowed to do this.
Well, it's like I said, man, the system wants you to rebel. And that's how I look at it. And I think, well, and I think beyond it anyway. I mean, this is the whole thing about when you start people. This is almost like, I think it's a false mindset when people get into this whole, the government controls this. It's all conspiracies. All six men. And I know it is. I mean, we know that there are powerful people in this world that sit around and divide the world into sub politics and stuff like that. But equally, like I say, they can't. We all, as I say often to you, my friend. Day to day, we're living in a world where we all get along. We all discuss. We all as human beings. That's the point. That the real human condition is one of getting along with each other. It's just they want to portray the world as it is, and it's just. And that's the thing about when all these. That's why I kind of get kind of resistant to people who have all these ideas about deep conspiracies and stuff like that. And I think, well, yeah, but they're only allowed to do it because you give them the power to give them that power. Like you said, man. The secret is, as you said before, is just to walk away. That's not participate in it, and then you watch how much it just you suck the oxygen from the room, and the beast will die, man. That's how you do it. You walk away. You don't feed them.
No, that's the thing is to fight them is to join them.
Exactly. And on that note, man, I think, well, I mean, I think we've got to give it over because we obviously been writing to each other. We are
Well, I just want
massive.
to,
Go on.
real quick. Well, real quick,
Right.
I just feel like,
You preach on, man.
well, we're not. I can easily see how somebody would say that we're just like we're being lazy and that change would never happen, and by doing nothing, and uh, that's the thing is, we'd still be doing something, and it would happen because they would lose their power, and all of a sudden, uh, minds would shift sides. That's what you have to do. You have to change the hearts and the minds of the people. You can't uh, force them to play these games. And, like I said, we don't really accomplish much anyway when we do take to the streets. And the only thing we do accomplish is we see that we are all united and we see the possibilities and the spreading of information that we can do on our own. But at the same time, we are spreading the information that they are wanting us to spread. And we are uniting in over things that they want us to unite over. And we are not fighting for the things necessarily that we want or deserve. And the big thing I can bring up is the marijuana legalization. You know, why that's even still a debate. Like, you know, celebration breaks out everywhere when it gets legalized in a state, and it's just kind of like it's like dad finally letting your curfew go till midnight. You know, when you're 16, like you're just like, yeah, finally they understand. Like everybody's so happy, and it's just it shouldn't even be like that. Like, you know, we shouldn't have to ask for the permission to do those things. We shouldn't have to ask for something like marijuana to be legalized. We shouldn't have to celebrate something like that because it shouldn't be a question, you know? And I think if, and that was really how it got, what was it? That's how it got overturned in Colorado. Was, you know, I heard the mayor talk, and he said, or it was I don't know if it was the mayor or the governor of the state, but one of them said, somebody in there said something of, you know, basically the taxpayers have spoken to me, and they have told me they don't want me to waste my time busting people for marijuana. And so, literally, that is people just turning away from the law and saying, you know, we don't want you to, but telling the people, you know, as far as the marijuana goes, like just turn your back to it. We don't care what the law says, just turn your back to it. And so, you know, it's the DEA could come down and bust you for holding pot, but because it's still a federal law that marijuana is illegal. But the state of Colorado has turned its back to that, and DC just turned their back to that. You know, it's so there. That is what you do. That I think is how you fight. Is you just kind of laugh at them, turn around, and keep doing what you're doing, and it will. I think something like that really sets a precedence and really resonates. And you're not playing into their hands. You're not feeding them. You're not fueling them. You know, just look at uh, protests or anything in general where you know the masses get together and things happen and people get arrested. You are making those cops money. You are making that town money. You are those people are paying court fees. And you know who's paying those cops to begin with? Taxpayers. Like you're you're paying people to argue with you, beat you up, cover you in pepper spray, put you in the back of a car, and then you're paying to let you out so you can probably do the same thing that day. Or so you can go to your job and work more to pay their paycheck so you can go back and fight them and same thing just goes over and over. It's it's the monster feeding and shitting, and it's just the cycle. So
Yeah,
that is as far as turning the other cheek and walking away, I think, and not doing anything. That is what I don't mean simply, you know, ignore it. It'll go away. Like, you know, fight when the fight is good, but don't play into the hands of people that just want to take up your time.
my friend, you know, I'm a few years older than you, and I've had that same thought for a long time, and that's exactly the why I got so excited. And I don't sit there like a salesman. I never sit there like a salesman on this podcast talking about it. But I got genuinely excited by when I heard what they were doing in MaidSafe, because I thought this is the first step about not only just walking away, but this is a big step and a big powerful one of, okay, you can start to build once you've walked away. Whether you know what I mean, and these, I- this is just the start of things. It's not, the not the be all and end all. This isn't, that this is it, the zenith of humankind, and once we all switch onto a network, we're all going to be in a utopia. No, these are just the first steps. But this is why I fly the flag and I talk about it a lot when I'm not in that sense, because that's the world that we're going to be facing in. Those are, like you said, those, and if you're one of those people that want to walk away, these are the tools that are going to make you. It's like having the world I've talked about before. When we all live in a world where everyone's walking around on stagecoach and horses, and it's taking 2 days to get to a village that's 100 miles away. We got the car coming, and eventually we will win because the technology will. We know that with humans, technology will always basically venture on, and you know, with a fair wind and amount of people getting onto this, in 10 years' time, people are going to look back and go, oh, why would you want to go on YouTube? Why would you want that restrictions? And that's why I talk about it. And it's because I waited a long time for something like this to come up. And I thought, this is it. We're finally, we haven't even been launched yet. We're tiptoeing into a brand new world. And, it's going to bring good and it's going to bring bad. And I know people are going to come and say it's like all these things. It was like when Pirate Bay came on, and it's all very relevant in your part of the world. But yeah, we'll get to be accused of being terrorists and paedophiles and all the rest of it. But hey, the world is good and bad, and like you said, it's a freedom to choose. But like I say, you go out into the wild, you can go and see, a flower, and you can also go and see a hornet, and that hornet will sting you. But that's, what do you want to do? Eradicate hornets from the world, or eradicate anything that does us harm? No, it's all part of the world. Just be aware of certain things, and that's freedom. That's true freedom. And these are the first steps along this way. That's why I got so excited about it, because I think it's not like I said, it's not the utopia moment, but it's the first step along a way of hopefully getting us away from that, like you said, from the system. Hope, for feeding that hole. Anything that's going to do that is a good thing.
Anything.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that was our Zen moment.
Mate, I think our whole of our podcast tonight was a Zen moment, my friend.
Yeah, rename the podcast the Zen moment.
The Zen moment. Well, just to make, I mean, I sort of like I'm a big, and Glenn has been around. He's been tweeting me all through this podcast. He's been having technical difficulties. Google. I'll repeat, Google.
Thanks,
Um,
Google.
yeah, thanks,
You
Google.
ruined our podcast.
Yet again, Google. But no, like I say, man. So just to let you know, we'll try to rearrange that. But me and you'll be back here within what, an hour. So
Yep, we will be Life as People will resume in 1 hour with an Italian beatmaker producer. Tim, tell us more.
well, his name is Sunday. That's what he goes under. But what he's probably mainly known for is producing Gore-Tex album, Art of the Dying, which I know is a particular favourite of yours. So I hand the ball back over to you. Ting.
Wow, even the video you sent me last night, because I hadn't. It's hard to look up Sunday on YouTube, but one video you sent me last night, his beats and his style are very very original, very hardcore, very gritty. Yeah, that last Gori Lohim album, who was formerly known as Gore-Tex, affiliated with the nonfiction group. Yeah, I said something. I think I even commented it on one of the Gore-Tex videos of, I said something like, "This is one of the hardest albums I've heard all year," and it really is. And as far as the Sunday beats go, I mean, they're just man, they're off the wall good, and it really kind of captured this sort of New York gritty beat style that I was telling Tim I think has kind of dissipated, and yeah, I'm not going to give my views on what I think it's morphed into, but it's good to hear, like you were saying, with Broken Opium Table, who obviously we're sorry we couldn't get him on tonight, but with hitting like the Low Fidelity All Stars, having that style from so many years ago. That's kind of what I heard when I heard that Sunday's beats for the first time, were that sort of gritty New York style of hip hop beat that has kind of been phased out. And I think it was probably around the same time, wasn't that, as the Low Fidelity, like 97,
Yeah,
98?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while since I've heard that kind of style of beat. I guess No did it, and the nonfiction album and Gore-Tex's earlier stuff, obviously, but the Sunday's beats definitely have an original feel to them, and uh, he's a first European guest, right?
Well, if you don't count us as European, yeah. You don't count us in England as European, but yeah.
No.
No.
Well, no, there's England and then there's like Europe because you guys are all in England.
Well, that's not,
It's
mate. You
like
say that, man.
you're all like down the street from each other.
But no, but I say that, man, because people have been listening to it over here, man. It's a real hot topic in the election, that's going on now. The distraction shown by the farmers, and one of the big sort of narratives of their big distraction circus is, um, I'm. It's basically the vote to get out of Europe because they don't class themselves as Europeans at all. And it's like, yeah, but you're divided by a channel that's 20 miles wide. You can well, people have swim it. They do it all the time, and they just
Yeah.
don't think they're part of Europe. There's that little bit of water and we're some sort of sovereign. It's, man, we're like this is a Zen moment, as we say over and again. We're just on that rock, man. And they need to people need to go look just to realise that we are just on a rock, and it's all we are. There's no boundaries. There's no. They're just all man-made lines, man. That's all they are.
Seriously, people call me all the time for like saying stuff like what you were just saying of like like oh you don't think England's part of Europe or whatever. Like to me, no. Like I still the British Empire. I mean, you guys are, as far as I'm concerned, like you're your own entity just as much as we are. I mean, um, I'm a lot of Americans forget we're part of that we're part of you know we have Canada on one border, another border. They just think like we're this completely segregated thing. Like they think Canada's, they're so much different than us, and Mexico is so much different than us. And no, there's like we don't even have a 20 mile, gap.
Mm, exactly, man.
We just have
Ex-
tall fences.
exactly. And
I was just saying, I make my own borders. I make my own rules. My globe doesn't. It only goes so far, Tim. Especially with Russia. We talked about that.
and with that, life is people.
Life is TV. Go watch TV. Love TV. Your TV loves you.